CBS did a made-for-television movie about Clara Harris called Suburban Madness. Completely, alibied her, made her seem like a poor, pitiable, betrayed wife. I always love this. One of the things I love is that whenever you want to excuse somebody, and it's usually we do it with women, but occasionally we do it with men, but whenever you want to excuse a woman or a man for doing something bad, you always just say they snapped, and it's as if they were the absolute perfect person before that, and then they were wrong, and then they snapped, and then they did this. Okay? My humble opinion, somebody capable of running a man over and over and murdering a man as his daughter begs her not to kill her. To me, that person, you know what? David Harris probably had good reasons for wanting to get away from her. She probably was not, behind closed doors, she probably was not the perfect angel that all of her defenders want to tell us she was. He probably had good reason for wanting to get out of there. Anyway, there was the trial, the civil trial for damages back in January. I had a column in the Houston Chronicle about it, and at the time, I looked this up, and there were 354 news stories about this. And in the 354, 233 refer to David Harris as Clara Harris's cheating husband. Not one mentioned the phrase domestic violence, or domestic abuse, or domestic homicide, or intimate partner violence, none of that. What is this but domestic violence? It's a woman killing her husband. It's domestic violence. All right, anyway. Now, another set of stereotypes, anti-male stereotypes, is, of course, about dads. Dads, of course, are deserters, they're dangers, they're bad, they're irresponsible, and most of all, dads are what? What is the one phrase we hear all the time? Deadbeats. Deadbeats. Anybody here see the movie Happy Feet? You. 2 people. Okay, you're not missing, well, my humble opinion, you're not missing much, but I have a young daughter, so I'm forced to go.
Grandkids.
So right, your grandkids, yeah, so I went. And, but I mean, at one point, I don't know, maybe it was my imagination, but my wife caught it too, so you'll tell me, but the boy, he becomes a teenager, and then he runs off because he wants to go save the herd of penguins from the people who are taking their fish. And his mother and father are there, and his father's very distraught, and he's kind of wandered off a bit, and he's there kind of, crying and sulking because he doesn't know what to do, and he misses his son or whatever. And one of the other people, when the penguin comes back, one of his friends or one of the other people says, "Oh yeah, you can go find your deadbeat dad over there." I'm like, what? How did this guy get to be a deadbeat? Did you catch that? You didn't see it. All right. Well, I saw it. My wife saw it.
I was too turned off by all the green stuff and, global warming, and we're taking their fish. And
well, I guess there's that aspect of it
out.
too. But it was a very, very minor aspect of the film, but it just made, deadbeat dad. There it is. It's almost like dad, deadbeat dad. It's the same thing. It's just like, where did that come from?
3 years ago, Florida passed a deadbeat dad law too. One of the things I hope to get out of this is anyone who can help me, because my state legislator said he would entertain if I came to him with something to help correct it. So,
Good luck.
Good luck. I know that was a feel-good measure that passed unanimously in the House.
Yeah, well, they love to do that. We'll talk about that too. But another example. This was from a Phoenix newspaper, and they're talking about this new security system they've got installed in some schools, I guess, because of threats of terrorism or whatever. But anyway, they write in this article, this middle school is participating in this pilot program. This web-based software will allow school staff to scan the IDs of the state-issued IDs of campus visitors to find out if any of these campus visitors are sex offenders or non-custodial parents. That's what you're on the lookout for. Got to make sure. Let me see. They're either, well, we're not on the lookout for sex offenders and murderers and rapists and armed robbers. We're on the lookout for sex offenders and non-custodial parents. That's about where it is. I just looked at it. It's like, it just came right out at me. It's just amazing. All right. Another example. A couple other examples here. Anybody here follow baseball? Any baseball fans here? Nobody? One in the back? Oh yeah, you. Yeah, you're too young for this. Anybody remember Dick Allen? A few people.
That was bad.
What?
42 ounce.
42 ounce bat, right. When I was a kid, Dick Allen was the best hitter in baseball, when I was a little kid. He's just an amazing hitter. But anyway, I've read things about him over the years. He's a complex guy. He was very much a victim of racism. He was also kind of a jerk, but whatever. But I've read different stuff about it. But everything I've read, it always says that he was abandoned by his father, or his mother was a single mother who raised him alone, and raised him and his 7 older brothers and sisters alone, and the standard thing that we hear. And a few months ago, I was cleaning out some things in my garage, and I stumbled upon Dick Allen's autobiography. So I thought, oh, well, this is interesting. I'll read this. It's a book I bought a long time ago, never read it. So I read it, and he doesn't really focus much on his family, just kind of talks about it in passing. But in passing, there's several interesting revelations. One, he says that his mother and father had a rocky up and down relationship, which eventually ended when the couple divorced. Okay, that's not exactly abandonment. He says that they divorced when Allen was 15. So the father was there through all the other kids' childhoods and until Allen was 15. Okay, that's not exactly abandonment either. And in the book he talks about how he wonders what happened with his father and what became of him, but he says he could never discuss it in his family because anytime he would mention it, it would greatly upset his mother. And he thought that if he had a relationship with his father, it would be a betrayal of his mother. He was very loyal to his mother, and he had some good reasons to be loyal to his mother. But basically, that's where everything ended with his father, is that he couldn't approach him, couldn't talk about him, couldn't find out where he was, whatever, because it would so greatly upset his mother. So out of loyalty to his mother, he didn't have anything to do with his father. That's not abandonment. I mean, that is not abandonment. Yet every time you hear about this, Dick Allen, his heroic mother raised the kids herself after they were abandoned by their father. Another example, anybody see the movie Walk the Line? Nobody? Johnny Cash?
Oh, yeah.
A couple people, okay. My wife's favorite movie. But anyway, the media loves to portray dads, particularly the old dads, the bad dad. Well, we're always bad, but the bad dad of old. Now it's the deadbeat dad. Before it was the super strict dad, the domestic tyrant who demanded too much of his kids and could never be pleased and blah, blah, blah. And that's how Johnny Cash's father is portrayed in this movie. He's demanding, and he's overcritical, and he's humorless, and his son could never do anything right, and he's a tyrant. And that's the way he's portrayed in the movie. But, Johnny Cash's own autobiography, he portrays him considerably different. I mean, the guy was a hard man. He was a tough man, like a lot of working class men during the Depression. But it wasn't anything like, was not this anywhere near as bad as he's portrayed in the movie. Another example. Back to baseball again. I was reading this thing about Dick Williams. Anybody remember Dick Williams? A couple of people? He was one of the greatest managers in history during the 60s and 70s. He did very, very well. But anyway, I was reading this thing about him, and this reporter describes his father as, quote, a surly domestic tyrant of incredible proportions. He beat his children, had all but insane ideas about discipline and never giving in, and conducted an unending emotional reign of terror that included the precept that compromise was unthinkable. Nice guy. Now, I read Dick Williams' autobiography, and again, I would think that Dick Williams would know, because it's his father. I would think he would know, and you get a very, very different picture of his father. Yeah, his father, he was a demanding man. He ruled with a strong hand, which some of us think is a bad thing. But some of us don't. But, he was hardworking. He was devoted to his kids. He would find time to play ball with them. And one time when Dick Williams was 16, he was playing a high school football game. He was I guess he was a running back, and he broke through for this long run. And he made this long run, almost scored a touchdown, but he got tackled, and he got hurt. And they took him off the field on a stretcher. And Dick Williams' father was on the other side of the field. And Dick Williams' father, the evil domestic tyrant who beat his children and was so terrible and hated, so hateful, was so worried that he fought his way down out of the stands and ran all the way across the field, panic-stricken over his son getting injured. And then in doing this, he had a heart attack and he dropped dead right there. So that's how his father died, running to find to get his son because he was so worried about his son and his being carried off the field on a stretcher.